Hello, this is Wmpyr. What we're going to do today in this video is something a little bit different. This book right here, Get Tough, we're going to look at it together. And this has been one of my favorite books of all time. Um, when I first saw it in 1994, back in my first year of college, I saw this at the college library, and I was looking at martial arts books, and when I saw this, it was like left such a strong impact upon me, and to this day, huge impact. Written by Captain Fairbairn for World War II Allied forces. Various soldiers, commandos, just super incredible author who had a ton of experience, stuff that it's hard to believe. It is just unbelievable stuff that this guy went through. And so he has an amazing background, and to get to read this book, we are so lucky, and I'm here to share it with you guys. So on the cover right here, I like the drawings, and I heard, I don't know how much of this is true, that he did the drawings himself. So in that case, very cool stuff. Right here on the cover is none other than the chin jab, which is, I believe, Captain Fairbairn's favorite move. To me, it's like the flagship move of his system, which a lot of people just call the Fairbairn method. It goes by other names. I like to just call it gutter fighting. But anyway, here we go. It says it's $1 on the side right there. Very cool stuff. And then it says that with your bare hands, you can beat the man who wants to kill you. Wow. How to win in hand-to-hand fighting as taught to the British Commandos and U.S. Armed Forces by Major W.E. Fairbairn. Okay, you don't need brute strength. And it says, get tough. He goes by Captain Fairbairn. Okay, so let me scroll down here. There we go. Okay, so right here, he is writing to us, and it says the method of hand-to-hand fighting. It's actually close quarters combat. Okay, hand-to-hand. When you say that word today, you kind of have the. I think it gives the impression that it's empty hand versus empty hand, and that's not what he's talking about. You'll see in this book right here that he does show weapon stuff. So, to me, this is he means hand to hand, that you're in the range where normally hand to hand occurs. So I would just call it close quarters combat, which is, this guy was like the father of CQC. So that term didn't really exist at the time, I believe. So that's we're talking about, he is the predecessor for many of these things that we take for granted today, like the SWAT team in the police force, or special forces in the military. So in here, he talks about talking about like Japanese judo, and in parentheses jujitsu, and then he also talks about Chinese boxing. So he has had those kinds of experiences, and which was pretty rare at the time in the Western world. They didn't really have a whole lot of that. So he was one of the few that was able to experience that, hardcore, legit, Asian martial arts training. And he also had the boxing and the wrestling experience, so the Western martial arts as well, and see the best of both worlds kind of thing. And in the beginning, he talks about, the members of His Majesty's forces, the commandos, parachute troops. So what parachute troops, is that like early SAS, before the SAS existed? The Home Guard was when, in World War II, Britain was worried that Germany was going to invade, and so the people that were like too old to be enlisted, to be recruited, drafted, those people were training for in case of an invasion, and that's what the home guard is. And it says right here that his method was taught to the home guard. And then he talks about whatchamacallit, I was assistant commissioner of the Shanghai Municipal Police. Well, at the time, it is known that the Shanghai was it was a port that was just exploding onto the scene. So it was probably the largest port, and it was at the time probably the most dangerous city on the planet Earth at the time. And he was the freaking, he was part of the police force at that time, which is a crazy and a crazy awesome experience for his work, and helped him, become the authority for this kind of stuff. And yeah, what else does he talk about? He's talking about the training, and how he carefully picked out this stuff. And let's move on to the next part. And then you can see that he signs it Captain W.E. Fairbairn. So that's why I call him Captain Fairbairn. Okay, I know he was like a colonel, and he had different positions, but yeah, so he signs a Captain Fairbairn. So that's I'm just gonna call him Captain Fairbairn. Okay. And then it's awesome right here where the author will be glad to answer questions from readers concerning the execution of the methods described in this book. How awesome is that? I wish he was still alive today. I would ask him a bunch of questions. Okay, so now let's go into the contents right here. Look, it pretty much goes into just techniques, right? So I wish there was a lot more details. A lot of details are missing. It's a very, very simple book. In a way, that's the strength of this book, is that it's very thin. You can probably see that it doesn't look like it's a massive book. It right here on my online, this PDF thing, it says 50 pages. That's really, really, and I'm sure it cuts out all the unessential stuff. So yeah, it's really, really a small book, but it's keeping it basic. But I there's a lot of stuff that I want info. I wish he had gone deeper into, and it's not in here. Principles and stuff like that included, but instead I pretty much just have to kind of like take his word for it. Which, if I'm going to take someone's word, which I don't need to, and you should never, right? But this guy is probably as close as you can get to someone who has a ton of combat experience. He's seen a lot, is very, very knowledgeable. But even still then, you should be able to question and do discussions. And not that you doubt the person, but there's nothing wrong with asking questions to understand more, So don't just take everything in as stone, and you know what I mean? So it's pretty much divided into techniques. Blows, which is your strikes. Releases, which is like your typical traditional martial arts, when they grab your wrist, how do you escape that kind of thing. And then you have holds, which is pretty much, this is like the forerunner to submissions, okay, which is pretty awesome. And the way that he describes it in this book, the way he describes holds, is he's the only real submission in here that you could say like, oh, in today's with today's MMA evolved world, or like how MMA has become the king of martial arts today, in a sense. From that perspective, the only real move in here is the rear naked choke, which is, I believe it's called he calls it the Japanese strangle hold. But the way he describes these holds, he talks about it like, as I remember there was this video of a famous Japanese professional wrestler, also a MMA fighter, who was friends with and also competed against Ken Shamrock, and the guy's name is Funaki Masakatsu. And in the video, in Japanese, he was talking, and he said the first time that a submission was put on him, and he described it. And he was describing it for people that who had never grappled, never done submissions, never been put in a submission, how powerful and painful it was. And the way Captain Fairbairn described it to me was exactly that. So to me, this is the forerunner of submissions today. Okay, so just something interesting to think about. And then he goes into throws, and then he goes into miscellaneous advice, which is like different techniques that kind of didn't fit the top part. Interesting is like chair and knife, and then the art of getting up from the ground. This was so interesting because that's one of the first things that they teach you in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And you know what Captain Fairbairn learned was old school jiu-jitsu, and it's the same thing being taught. That was like, that is just awesome. You could see the lineage of where the Gracies come from. So cool. And then right here says attack with a small stick or cane. So he was into that as well, a stick fighting. He knew the benefits of that. So that, for me, my Escrima lineage, that just makes me go, yes, you know. And then he was a big knife guy, knife fighter. So it says use of the knife. And then the smash it, which is something to, you have to believe to see. See, yeah, believe. How do you say it? You have to see it to believe it, or something like that. And then disarming an opponent of his pistol. I hate the font here, by the way. It's, to me, it's hard to read, but let's move on. He was also really big innovator for combat shooting. And okay, so we're going to start off with blows. Look, the number one technique here is edge of the hand. He starts with this. It's not the chin jab, even though that's on the cover, and we know that like chin jab seems to be one of his favorites. He starts with edge of the hand. To me, that's huge. So I believe he did this on purpose, and in a combat situation, you're not going with the ultra powerful moves like the chin jab right off the bat. I believe you're going to use deception. You're going to surprise attack the enemy, but you're going to go with something much faster first, like the edge of the hand over the chin jab. And I believe that's no coincidence that this technique is first. Now, he says some stuff about like, you know, if you see in the photo right here, the thumb should be pointed up. In like a lot of karate techniques, when they're doing the chop, the hand is almost squished. Like you see Mas Oyama sensei do the you know, breaking stuff, where he's breaking this like crazy ancient rocks and stuff. The way that he's doing the chops is not like this. So I would love to have a discussion with Captain Fairbairn about that. But he learned it this way, you know, and I wish I knew what the logic was, but it's not described. And the other thing that's curious about this is, okay, so if you look at figure 3, he's doing a chop, which is, you know, the sideways chop, right? And he says that you're don't do it with the arm completely straight. Okay, yeah, that you know, if your arm gets countered or you hit the wrong thing, you could snap out your own elbow. So it makes sense to do that. I remember in Gichin Funakoshi's book, the Karate Do Way, or I forgot what it was exactly called, but in his book, he was saying that in professional wrestling, the karate chop is very popular, but he was saying that the way that I do the karate chop does not look like, I don't swing my arm from a, you know, from way back where, from all the way from like a haymaker. He says, I don't do it that way. And, you know, it's kind of interesting to me. The Captain Fairbairn's way of doing the chop and Gichin Funakochi's way of doing the chop might be more similar. I don't think it's the same, but I think it's more similar along the same lines. So I think that's very interesting. But he talks about you do it with this sideways chop on figure 3, you do it with the palm down, not with the palm up. I would love to talk to him once again about why that is, because I feel like there are some, like you can do it effectively with the palm up, and especially with Escrima, we do have, maybe it's not completely sideways, but it would be definitely for sure diagonal down with the palm up, and I don't know why he does. He says definitely. Let's see where he says. With the palm of the hand downwards, never on top. Never is a very strong word. So I'd like to know the logic behind that. And I don't know if that's because you're exposing the soft side of your arm where you have against a guy holding a blade, you're going to be in trouble. So I don't know if that's the reason or what, but either way, I'd like to know the reason. So next is we finally, I'm sorry for taking so long there, but now we're going into the chin jab. And once again, this is his, like his prized possession, his prized technique. And in figure 6 is, you're going, what the heck is that? He's showing you how to practice it. He's really big into practicing this move. So there you go. And I have seen videos where this technique, this shows different versions of it. And I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, what's really the difference between this technique and the tiger's claw technique? Because sometimes it seems like it kind of crosses over. And so does he just call the chin jab the tiger's claw, or the chin jab is a type of tiger's claw? So within the tiger's claw technique, there's a bunch of different moves, and the chin jab is one of them. I don't know. So, because the chin jab is kind of more specific to like an uppercut. But if you go straight on, or if you come from the side like a hook, those are all called tiger's claw. And you know, chin jab is just one of many tiger's claw techniques. I don't know exactly. So that's another thing. I wish I could ask him. But you know, as far as if you're studying this stuff, the chin jab right here, this move right here where it's uppercut style, this is very, very strongly emphasized, and just learn the chin jab just like that, you know. And then the boot side kick, I really like this technique because this was another technique that I really like, where he kicks the person onto the knee with the boot and then scrapes down their shin with the side of the boot and then ends in a stomp. So it's actually a triple combo. Kick to the knee, grind down the shin with the edge of your boot, and then a stomp. So that's a triple hit right there. Really thought that was super cool. But let me go back right here. By the way, with this edge of the hand thing, you know, this chop move essentially, you know, he talks about you could do it to, let's see, on the opponent's body, the sides of the back of the wrist. So the forearm, halfway between the wrist and you are attacking the guy's arm, the biceps. So he talks about the sides or the back of the wrist. So he's talking about the wrist, and then the forearm, and also the bicep. So I mean, if that's not defang the snake, I don't know what is, okay? But he also talks about doing it to the Adam's apple, the kidneys, or the base of the spine. So, yeah, it's versatile in that sense. So, yeah, this is more talking about the that stomp that I was telling you about. This next one, the Bronco kick, this is, you know, pretty much think of Enter the Dragon, where Bruce Lee finishes O'Hara in that move where he kills the guy, where it's this crazy double stomp. That's pretty much the image that I get from this. This looks brutal, right? And now Another thing about the double stomp, we have, and I already talked about this in another video, in the Pride Fighting Championships, where the guys from Shoota Box, Vanderlei Silva, Shogun, and also Ninja, all three of those guys did foot stomps like crazy, and because it was allowed in that organization of MMA sport fighting, and pretty much the fighters, they didn't really do a double foot stomp like this. It was always single. So, that's something, very interesting discussion to do with Captain Fairbairn. Like, what if you got kicked sideways as you're coming down? Would that make you fall over to the side or something? So then is it more stable if you stomp with one foot, So that's the kind of thing I would like to ask them. And then next is goes into the knee to the balls, of course. And so now he's talking about the releases. So this is the second section. So the first section was all strikes that you saw, okay? And then next is releases, getting away. So it's interesting that there's no blocks or defenses. If anything, this is the defense right here, how to get away from a grab, okay? So he doesn't really do your typical defense, that no parries, no block. We didn't really see any of that, okay? It was all just strikes, and now it's get off of me kind of thing. And that's what he's showing right here. If you're being grabbed by two hands, you grab your own hand and pull up. This release was taught to me when I was doing lifeguard training back in high school. When a person is drowning, you go to save them and they're being frantic and they jump on you. We had to know some ways to get away, and this kind of thing was taught to us. So next is, okay, so this is now from a choke, right? So you're being choked. He's getting the arm off of you and kneeing the guy in the balls. So these are all, this is the kind of, like, when I think of traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, this is the kind of thing that I think of. And then from here, you're becoming very good at manipulating joints. Like if you look at figure 25, that basically looks like a Nikyo to me right there in Aikido. So, Aiki, Jiu-Jitsu, they all have stuff in common. And then from here, you go to figure 26, which is your straight arm lock. You see this kind of thing in Aikido as well. But then, I think the Gracies have shown, and some of them still teach this kind of self-defense stuff. But when none of this stuff is working, like in figure 25 or 26, the wrestling comes in. And that's where, you're spending most of your time doing the grappling, so you're going to be fine. So let's say at figure 26, the guy's grabbing onto your leg, you lose your balance, you both fall onto the ground, then it's all right because you'll be pulling the guy into the guard and putting him in an arm bar or something like that, So that to me is like how jiu-jitsu kind of like evolves. And even like today, like if I had like a bouncer type of job, why I wouldn't just, this guy is drunk or he's causing some trouble, would I immediately try to knock him out? It doesn't kind of make sense to do that, right? So I would try to restrain him using this kind of hold, and if I get the restraint, that would be awesome. But if I don't, you can easily see how it would turn into a grappling match. So you need the grappling skills and then do the submissions, the more submissions that you would typically see in the sport of MMA or BJJ. So anyway, coming down here, so bear hug escapes, different kinds of bear hug escapes. He goes into that. How it's not very BJJ-like at this point, or wrestling or grappling-wise, is that he's incorporating the strikes, as in figure 29, 28, he starts to attack to the balls and then knee to the head while he's doing a joint lock into, it looks like he's grabbing onto the guy's face, like clawing on, and he's ready to do a palm strike and a knee strike to the balls. This is, But then remember, Captain Fairbairn did boxing and wrestling as well. So that's always there. It's not just this. Because to rely just on this kind of thing, to me, is if you only have this, then you can't fight. When this stuff doesn't work, then you're in a fight. So then he has the boxing and wrestling to be able to fight the guy and try to make these techniques work again, So to me, that's also another important perspective. But there is times where you are able to end the fight without it becoming a fight. And I think that's kind of the thing what Captain Fairbairn is going for, because fighting skills is, not everyone can do it, because let's face it, the sport of MMA, that kind of training is ultra hard, but you want as much of that as you can. But even if you can handle it, it's just a matter of time before you start getting injured and your body starts falling apart. Even for the greatest fighters on the planet Earth, like the ones where everyone knows their name, like Conor McGregor or Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali or John Jones, or Fedor Emelianenko or any of those guys, okay, any of them, body starts to fall apart. It's just a matter of time. So anyway, so right here's going into some more how to defend against a hair hold. This is one it's kind of difficult to show with the figure, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you're gonna put the guy in a wrist lock, okay, and then this is interesting. He does the palm slap to the ears, and then he goes into the thumb lock. This is now very interesting to me because, for Filipino lock flow, you're going to learn, if you don't learn something like this, you'll learn maybe something similar to this. I was fortunate enough to learn this in 1990, not from a Captain Fairbairn related anything, but it was probably more small circle jiu-jitsu related, but I learned it. And my instructor was a Professor Remy Presas Arnis, so Filipino martial arts. So this is what I'm saying, Filipino martial arts lock flow. But I'm not even sure if we learned it as that. It could have come from that, and he just never gave it any credit. And he just said, but I kind of feel like when I think back on it, he made it sound like it was a Kuk Soo Wan technique. But I don't know exactly the origins there, but I did learn this technique. And I also was fortunate enough to see one of my other favorite martial arts books, which was a book written by Gene LeBell. And he's the famous catch wrestling guy, judo competitor, and Hollywood stuntman. And he wrote a book called Grappling Master, and in it he shows this. I believe he called it like the Party Flex or something. So now we're talking about sentry removal stuff. So this is, back to very, very battlefield stuff. Because the other stuff that we were looking at could be applied to other situations, but sneaking up behind someone like this and taking them out is very, very, battlefield. And this I saw in another book. I forgot which one, but it was like a manual for special forces. And in that book, specifically described like you change your outfit for this night. It was like do it at night when you're going to invade the enemy fortress like this. Do it at night, and you want to be silent. So even your shoes change. They're not supposed to be boots. They're supposed to be lighter shoes, and so that's what he was talking about in that book. And here is the rear naked choke. The extraordinary effectiveness of this hold will be readily understood if you have a friend. Apply it on you as above, being careful to exert no more than 1/12 of the required force. Yeah, very, very strong technique. Yeah, no wonder the Brazilians called it mata-leon, right? So, okay, I'm coming down here, and now he's talking about the handcuff hold. It's arm behind. Um, Types of wrist locks, and then this is like this is, I thought, very interesting. You're gonna go into a headlock, but the way you go into it would not be like a headlock could be used in wrestling, amateur wrestling. Whether it's um, like freestyle, folk wrestling, or I'm not sure if they probably allow it in Greco-Roman. I don't know. I'm not super uh, know the details about wrestling, but a headlock is used. To headlock someone like this would not be legal. I mean, this is to brutally, it's basically you're ridge handing, you're clotheslining a person into a headlock. So this is a very vicious way. And then he says you can let go, chop the guy, and then go back into a headlock or something like that. Let's see, where does he say that? Okay, it says, if necessary, apply an edge of the hand blow as follows. Release your hold with your left hand, okay, straighten up slightly and apply the blow on the left side of his neck. So I'm looking at figure 62 where you have the headlock. So you're going to use your right hand to chop the guy on his left side of the neck, okay? Which, I mean, you could probably keep his head on your thigh and chop, maybe, like you're trying to chop a fruit or something. But yeah, it doesn't say go back to the headlock, but it definitely says you could switch it to a strike. And then now he's going into throws. So this right here, I think, is the most common throw right there. That is taught in a lot of different martial arts schools and stuff. And yeah, so he substitute from figure 63 to 65, basically the same throw, but in 65 it's the tiger's claw, and you take the person down. And then now this is a wrist throw. So this is now we're talking about like aikido, like kotegaeshi, right? And then this one is awesome. This is more like professional wrestling looking, but hey, it's undeniable. If you do this to someone, oh my gosh, I can only imagine. It's interesting how he chose the back, the spine. What about the rib cage? Or is the rib cage, it might get defended against? I don't know, but very interesting idea. And then he talks about using a chair for defense. This one, the matchbox attack, to me is very curious. It really doesn't have enough detail on there for me, so I had to make some assumptions. And I'm thinking, why a matchbox in your hand? Is the matchbox made of metal? I don't think so. I think it's a matchbox, something that looks very, very light and weak, and it's in your hand. And the opponent sees that, and they don't think you're going to use that to hit them because there's something soft in your hand. So you're giving the illusion that, yeah, I'm not going to hit you with this hand, but you are. And it's really, you're just hitting them with a ridge hand. It looks like a ridge hand to me, except the fingers aren't straight out. And he talks about like how this is a powerful blow. Yeah, the odds of knocking your opponent unconscious by this method are at least 2-1. So that he's saying that it's a very, very powerful, possibly knockout inducing blow. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing is that it, and ridge hand is known to be very powerful. So I'm thinking it's a ridge hand strike, very similar to that. And the matchbox is just there as a distraction. You could probably substitute the matchbox with something another, look, if you had something solid in your hand, they might be like, oh, he might try to hit me with that. But the key is to have something soft, like a tissue paper or napkin or something like that, and they go, yeah, and it's awkward. It looks awkward to hit something really hard that way, but you totally can, I think, is the moral of the tale here. So it's making your hand look less like a weapon, but it totally is. All right, so you go back to smacking the ears here. Oh, here we go. The art of getting up from the ground. So this, what you're seeing right here, is what the Gracies call the Gracie get up. And you're seeing this. I mean, this is the beauty. I love that, the whole historical, just the idea of the lineage. Why it's Gracie. Why it's not Gracie fighting method. It's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and because it comes from Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And here we are, a guy who's never studied Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This is Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, so it's the same move. Oh, I love that kind of historical thing. Very cool stuff. Okay, so next he's showing, looks to me like a back roll to get back up. All right. And now he has the small stick or cane. Okay, look, going real quick with a back roll, it seems like, what? When would you ever do a back roll to get up? I don't know. The Sistema guys do this kind of thing. And what I think is beautiful is that I've seen the Sistema guys do this kind of thing, ground engagement exercise while holding a firearm. And while trying to keep that firearm ready to go. So, yeah, I think that's mega awesome. You probably do it with also a knife. You should practice this kind of thing. It's been a long time since I've done that. I'll be honest. I haven't done this kind of training in a long, long time, but I have done it. Next is attack with a small stick or cane. So once again, this is, for my Escrima background, this definitely hits home for me. And I recently uploaded a video for you guys showing my Escrima forms. And one of them, the last one, second to the last, which was close range. And Captain Fairbairn's material is mostly for close range. Okay, it is close range stuff. CQC means clinch, basically. That's the way that I see it, all right? So there's a lot of close range stuff in here. So for close range stick usage, both hands on the stick. And that's what he's showing. Very pugil stick-like, very bayonet fighting-like. It makes sense here for him, teaching to soldiers. And also, for me, it resonates extremely well. Next up is the tying up the person. Remember, he was part of the police force, so this was very important to him, how to tie a person up. And then now he's doing the same kind of thing, controlling the person without the rope, okay, without a tie. He's using his own arms and his technique to do the same kind of thing. And I think that's also very interesting. And that, once again, takes us back to the submissions. And I just said to you guys that this is clinch stuff, okay? And so, yeah, this stuff is grappling, essentially, stand-up grappling. And now we go to use of the knife. And this is his specialty. So he goes into knife stuff right here. And the figure right there, I believe, shows the knife that he designed. Fairbairn and Sykes, both gentlemen, worked together to design a fighting knife, like for the SAS. And I believe that's what that is in the drawing. Very cool stuff. And then he designed another one called the Smatchet, which is what you see right here. It's a beast of a blade. And look at this. The Allied forces guy attacking the German soldier, what looks to be the German soldier. The German soldiers are unarmed, all right? So if you're thinking about using this for self-defense, this is not self-defense. You have a big old knife. The other guy is unarmed. This would not work in today's self-defense, modern day, you're going to be in trouble, big trouble if you do that. So now is disarming, gun disarming, right here. So he's going into that, and I believe this pretty much leads into his other stuff where, he talks about pointing and shooting kind of thing. He was big into realistic firearms training, tactical, like before the word tactical, like it is today. He was doing tactical firearms training. He invented that essentially. And here we go. More stuff where goes now he's combining it with empty hand stuff. You can see him do the chin jab, tiger's claw type stuff there, while he's controlling the arm. And this is awesome because this is the same kind of what I call wrapping. You wrap the arm, whether it's a gun, knife, I don't care what it is, or even bare hand. You wrap up the arm and you fight him in CQC, in the clinch, close quarters combat. So once again, showing more stuff. He's mixing in the knees, all the joint attacks, everything. And this is the last page, page 50. Okay, so one of the things that I noticed here is that in my personal impression was that Captain Fairbairn's method was very assault style, meaning it was designed to just attack a person, surprise attack, and then attack, that kind of thing. And yes, while that is true, now looking back on this book, I'm surprised that I see a bunch of other stuff here, like the escapes from a wrist grab, how to disarm someone with a gun, this kind of thing, knife stuff, stick stuff, so it's actually much more broader than I had originally remembered. There is a lot of stuff in here for a lot of different situations. And I think that 100% goes with what he was saying here, where he said, let me see where I can find it. He's talking about you practicing this stuff, and he's talking about that this was all for, okay, right here it says, it is not the armed forces of the UN, United Nations alone who can profit by learning how to win in hand-to-hand fighting. Every civilian, man or woman, whoever walks a deserted road at midnight or goes in fear of his life in the dark places of a city should acquaint himself with these methods. So he's talking about self-defense too. Remember, he was a police, that in the city. So it wasn't just the battlefield. So he's really, his method, and obviously not all of his method, because like using a smatchet in the city is not going to fly, right? But I mean, for that to fly, we're talking about a very, very, very specific situation that you could use that and then call it self-defense. Because what was shown in here is not self-defense. That was totally offensive. But it is very broad, is what I'm trying to say. It's not just for the battlefield, okay? And that's something new for me that I realized, that I thought it was pretty much only for the battlefield. And right here he's saying no, that this is also, provided certain things, yes, certain things not, certain things need to be modified probably, but his intention here is for both. And the other thing right here is all the photos that I saw here, okay, take a brief look at all this stuff with me. It's all one-on-one. Okay, I don't see anything here where the dude is surrounded taking on 2-3 guys. So that is also another very, very important thing to me. And like I said, most of the stuff is surprise attack based, where the other person is not expecting you to retaliate or to attack at all. So please keep those things in mind. I hope you enjoyed looking at this book with me. To me, this was one of the biggest influences on my martial arts journey to this day. It still continues to be an influence, just like Bruce Lee does to this day. But yeah, this was huge for me. So yeah, I definitely think that Captain Fairbairn stuff is worth checking out. I hope you enjoyed this video. That's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.